Hello, everybody. My name is Nick Hancart, and I'm with the State of Ohio Treasurer's Office. And today, I am going to be talking about stable accounts. Anything and everything that you might want to know about stable accounts, we'll find out a good amount of it here. And then, apart from that, you are more than welcome to, for members of the Family Resource Network, after you finish this video, you're more than welcome to get in contact with me or my team, and at the end of this will be all of our contact information as well. So what I first wanted to start off with is showing you our website. Website is stableaccount.com. And the reason for this is because anything and everything around stable accounts is done here on the website. Whether it is opening up an account, learning more about what we do, seeing the types of presentations that we have, any documents that you might need for stable accounts are all housed here. And so throughout the presentation, I'll also make sure to come back to this main landing page so that when I mention something, you'll know exactly where to go when you see it. Now, I'm gonna first click this resources tab up here that I'm hovering over, and it gives us a new tab. And what's great about this new tab is that this is all of our information. So for me, a little bit of background about myself is that I am the outreach manager for stable accounts. So I get the opportunity to travel across Ohio to be able to educate and train people on the benefits and the ins and outs of everything stable accounts. And this is where I come most often on the website because this has the most information. And as you can see, the whole right side is for those that are speaking Spanish, because with stable accounts, we serve people in all 50 states. And we know that there are a lot of people that do speak Spanish that need our information, and so we want to be able to provide that for them as well. And I'll be talking about a few more of these throughout the event today. But again, as we look forward to, this is what we're going to be focusing on today. Right here is the PowerPoint presentation. And typically when I meet people in person, I always tag along with the presentation outline because it's a lot easier to digest all of that information on a few pages. But given some of the certain restrictions with COVID-19, we want to make sure that we can still bring you the most accurate, up-to-date information while keeping everybody safe. So I've clicked on the PowerPoint presentation, and it is going to take us here. Now, you'll see stable accounts. That stands for State Treasury Achieving a Better Life Experience. I know that's just another acronym, but I do have two of them for you today, but I promise they are very close to one another. So what you first see is Ohio's ABLE plan. That stands for Achieving a Better Life Experience. And again, that is the entire goal of these accounts, is that we are able to provide people with disabilities more financial independence, more autonomy, more community inclusion, and helping to level the playing field in the financial world. And so you noticed earlier that those acronyms really overlap each other, and that's because they should. ABLE is the national federal legislation that was passed back in 2014, whereas stable accounts is Ohio's plan, and so our state legislation was passed in 2015. And what the federal government allowed for us to do was to be able to create this program, and now it is our job to implement. So the State Treasurer's Office of Ohio implements these programs, and not only do we have the opportunity to reach out to Ohioans, we have the opportunity to reach out to those across the country. So it does not matter where somebody lives or where somebody may move to in the future, this account will still follow them. The whole goal of ABLE accounts in general, no matter what state, is that somebody can place money in this account that it will not count towards their resource limits. It does not affect their eligibility, does not affect their resource limits for those federal programs. So typically the two main ones that we think about are SSI and Medicaid, but that is not exhaustive by any means. Of course, somebody may be receiving benefits through housing and urban development, such as for here in Ohio, the 811 program, or it could also be Section 8 housing that takes place across the country, or even food stamp benefits. All of these are means tested benefits for people. And if they want to be able to save more of their money, they can do so in a stable account. Since stable accounts have not been around as long as other financial programs, we had the opportunity to take some of the existing financial programs, and you see some of them in front of you now, whether it's a 529 college savings plan, a checking account, or a special needs trust, and bring them together in part, but also including retirement accounts into this graphic as well. So for a couple quick examples, a 529 college savings plan is used for education, and of course a stable account can be used on education, but it can also be used for so much more. A checking account has the ease of use to where people can use their account and spend out of their account every day. Stable accounts also offer that functionality, whereas the goal of a special needs trust and a stable account are almost in line with each other, that we both want to help people with disabilities and their families save money for whatever their goals may be. Now, while our state legislation was passed in 2015, we had the opportunity to launch our program in 2016. And so as of this recording, we have been open and available for people to enroll for over 4 years now. And as I mentioned earlier, we already have people in all 50 states that are enrolled in the program, and we are really proud of that as well. The main benefit, again, and I'll mention this a lot during this presentation, is that stable accounts allow people to save money over that resource limit, whatever the resource limit may be, because sometimes it changes. It has been $2,000 for a very long time, but we do know that over time it may change. So no matter what that resource limit is, we can help people save above that resource limit. But that's not the only benefit. Ownership is also a key component to stable accounts, because a person with a disability who wants to be in charge of their own account has the opportunity to be in charge of their own stable account, administer their own stable account, enroll their own stable account, and these are amazing things that we can see. That lends hand in hand with financial independence, because ownership alone increases financial independence. But stable accounts are also an investment account. So they are a savings and investment account. The investment side is completely optional, but it allows for people to see their funds grow in the account tax-free, which lends itself to the third point, is that all of the earnings on a stable account are tax-free. So they are not taxed as they grow, and they are not taxed when they are withdrawn. But that is not the only tax benefit. Anybody and everybody can put money into a stable account. So it does not matter your relationship with the person. It could be family, friends, neighbors, coworkers, that anybody, and also no matter where they live, anybody can be contributing to that stable account. And now, what is great about it for Ohio residents, if you live in Ohio and you are contributing to a stable account, you can qualify for a state tax deduction of up to $4,000 every year. Now, we have seen that number change as well over time, but each state is done a little bit differently. So if you want to look more heavily at websites and comparing tax benefits of state income tax deductions, then there are websites and resources that are on our stable account page that will allow people to do that as well. Eligibility, what I'm first going to do is I'm going to go back to our main landing page before I get into this, because I want to show people right here that we have an eligibility quiz, and I want to show people the eligibility quiz and where it is before I get into this. And so we're back here on the main page, but if you hover over the eligibility button and click it, it will scroll you down the screen. And what's great about this is we have built an eligibility quiz. So even if somebody doesn't get to hear our presentation, or they might not know a whole lot about stable accounts, that's perfectly fine. Because what we do here is we provide a tool that allows people to take this quiz. It's less than 60 seconds. It is all yes or no questions, and it gives people an immediate answer to let them know that, yes, I am eligible, or yes, my loved one is eligible to enroll in a stable account. And then what it does is it offers them to take them right into the enrollment process from there. So that is where it is on our main landing page. But I'm going to go back to our presentation, because the reason why the quiz does not take long at all is simply because there are only 3 rules that we need to pay attention to in determining eligibility for somebody. The first rule that actually is not on this page is that there is a limit of 1 per person. So I mentioned to you, stable accounts are Ohio's plan, but there are 41 other states that have their own program. And so for those other states, it doesn't matter which one you've enrolled in, whether it's stable accounts or another one, there is only a limit of 1 per person. And that's something that you cannot have 2 stable accounts, or you can't have an Ohio account or a California account. That it's just 1 account per person, no matter what, which is a little bit different than other financial programs like checking accounts or like 529 programs, but that is the federal law. The second aspect is the disability for the person must have occurred or onset prior to the age of 26. Now, one thing that I really like to stress here is that people do not have to be under the age of 26 to enroll, but they just have to have stated that, yes, their disability occurred or onset prior to the age of 26. As I mentioned earlier, we just celebrated our 4-year anniversary, but stable accounts already serve people in their 70s, 80s, and 90s. And so as long as any individual who is above the age of 26, they can still enroll as long as they say that their disability occurred prior to the age of 26. Now, the third rule is, you'll notice that we're going to ask people to meet just 1 of the following. We're not going to ask people to meet all 3 of these next rules, but as long as they fit 1 rule under this umbrella, then they are good to go. The first part of the third requirement is if somebody is eligible to receive or is already receiving SSI or SSDI due to their disability. The difference here in between already receiving and eligible to receive is that we know that there are many minors throughout the country that are not receiving these benefits yet because their parents' income is too much. And so based on their disability alone, they are eligible to receive these benefits, but because of income and monetary restrictions, they are not. The second aspect is something called the list of compassionate allowances. This is something that the Social Security Administration puts out every year. And what it allows for people to do is Social Security uses this so that they can broaden the amount of people that have their benefits. It broadens the amount of people that can take advantage of using their benefits. But we use it for the same reason, so that more people can open up and more people are eligible for stable accounts. Now this list changes a little bit here or there every year, but that list is typically about 150 to 160 different conditions every year. And we also have a link to it on our website, or if you were to just Google list of compassionate allowances, it would come right up. The third aspect is self-certification, because if you notice, these first 2 rules really focused on Social Security. But what if a person is not receiving Social Security? Or what if they're not receiving any benefits at all yet? Well, that's exactly where self-certification comes in, because self-certification is a person saying, well, Nick, I meet these first 2 rules. I do not have a stable account yet, and my disability occurred prior to the age of 26. And the way that people can fit the third rule is self-certification. Self-certification is having a doctor's diagnosis that a condition that has a marked and severe limitation will last up to or greater than 1 year or 12 months. One thing to take note about this is that people do not need to turn in their doctor's diagnosis to us. During the enrollment process, people will fill out some more information, such as the doctor and the approximate date of diagnosis. And for that reason, we do not ask people to turn in physical copies of diagnoses. This is also something, a good point to mention, that a lot of people may automatically assume that it is only individuals of the developmental disabilities community that can open up stable accounts. But as you can see here, that it is people of all different conditions and many different disabilities that are able to open up and utilize a stable account to their benefit. Enrollment, I'm going to take you guys really quick back to the first page here, to our main page on our website, and we're going to go all the way back up to the top. And what we can see here is when you get to the main landing page, there are two big open account buttons. One's up here on the top, and the other's, most of the left side is focused on opening up the account. So again, everything is done on the website when it comes to opening up an account. We also, it takes about 20 to 25 minutes, and you'll see there that there's a $50 minimum deposit. I always like to tell people, of course the enrollment is free, but that $50 the person keeps. That is theirs to keep. All it does is just create an opening balance within the account. That's all. The person can still keep, invest, and spend that money how they choose. I also mentioned at the very beginning that ownership was a really unique key component to stable accounts. And so the beneficiary can open up their own stable account and be in charge of it. Travis Dresbach is a perfect example of that. He is in Circleville, Ohio, and every once in a while he gets to travel with us when traveling is allowed to speak at different presentations. But Travis is a perfect example of a beneficiary who has opened and continues to manage his own account. But not everybody has that same opportunity. So we'll want to look towards an authorized legal representative, or an ALR, as we will call it from now on for short. An ALR is a parent, a guardian, or a power of attorney. So anybody that fits one of these three, a parent, guardian, power of attorney, is able to open up and administer the stable account for the beneficiary. And when there is an ALR involved, this is also important to mention that when there is an ALR involved, that person is in charge. So they will be making the final decisions on things such as investing or spending, or whether we use the debit card or not. Those are types of decisions that an ALR would focus on. People can deposit money into the stable account either electronically or by mailing us a check. Both are perfectly fine. Now what I'm going to do is I'm going to move to the next slide really quick, where we can see all of these numbers quickly blown up for people. The first number that you'll see is $15,000. $15,000 is the annual contribution limit for stable accounts. Remember earlier that I mentioned that anybody and everybody can put money into a stable account, and that is still true. But we need to make sure that that amount stays below $15,000 per year, and we do the legwork on that. As you can see at the bottom, that we are in charge of making sure that there are no excess contributions into the account. That is our job. So whether it is aunts or uncles or grandparents, family friends, anybody that's contributing, and I will use today as an example. We are recording this on June 3rd, and if somebody were to open up their account on June 23rd, they have from until that date until December 31st to place $15,000 into their stable account. On January 1st, everybody that has a stable account gets a clean slate, and they have the opportunity to put in $15,000 more dollars. So you don't have to spend that. You can keep it in there, and you can kind of see every year is, I like to akin it to a brick. So every year you're placing a brick on the foundation for a better financial future. And you do not have to max out the account. People do not have to put all $15,000 in there every year. You can put in 50, 1,000, however much somebody wants to be able to put in, they're able to do that. And also that $15,000, the numbers that we get, these are based on other state and federal guidelines. 15,000 is actually the federal gift tax exclusion limit. And so when we first started in 2016, that number was 14,000. And so whenever the federal gift tax exclusion limit continues to increase, this will increase this 15,000 to eventually $16,000 as well. Now, one thing that the federal government did back in 2018 was the Able to Work Act. And the Able to Work Act stated that if somebody has a stable account, they're employed, they're earning their wages, that they have the opportunity to put more money into the stable account during that calendar year. So we can see the amount of money increase currently up to over $27,000. Now you might be thinking to yourself, Nick, that number sounds really weird. Why is it $12,490? It seems very exact, and it is. That is the federal poverty line for a single income household. And so the year is 2020, we're working off 2019's number. So that's what the federal guideline gives us. So when we move into 2021, we will be using the federal poverty line for 2020. That way we can best keep track of everything for all deposits that are coming into the account. So that's why you see that that number is very exact. And the way that people can bridge that gap between the 15 and the 27,490 is by using their wages. People can place their wages into their stable account through direct deposit, or if they want to continue receiving their funds the current way that they are into a checking or savings account, then they are more than welcome to do that and then transfer money into the stable account. They are more than welcome to do that. People who make up to this 27,490, you can have all of the money be wages. So all of that 27,490 can be wages. The only thing that's restricted is the $15,000 because it's coming from outside sources. So if somebody wants to continue to save more of their wages, that's great. That will just shrink the amount of money that somebody can receive from outside sources. And we've seen plenty of instances of that where somebody is independent and they want to be able to save more of their wages, but they won't have a whole lot of family members contributing to them. That's a perfect example of this as well. Now, the last number I want to mention is $482,000. This is the 529 College Savings Plan of Ohio limit. And so every year this number goes up. That means that our lifetime limit for stable accounts will go up as well. Because when we first started back in 2016, the number was actually 426,000. So you can see that over time, it's going to continue to grow and in much larger sums than the annual contribution limit and the Able to Work Act portion will grow. E-gifting. This is a unique event that I always like to tell people is a re-education tool, because for decades, people have been told that please do not contribute to me or to my child because it will ruin their benefits. And this is a great way that people can directly contribute to a stable account. And at that case in point, they can directly contribute to the stable account and not have to worry about somebody losing their benefits. But also on top of that, remember, they can get that state tax deduction if you're that Ohio taxpayer contributing to a stable account. We've even seen these e-gifting events used as a pseudo GoFundMe, to where somebody might need financial assistance with something that perhaps a benefits agency can't pay for. And so they'll ask for their friends or their loved ones or family members to help them out with what their cause may be. Investing the funds is, again, completely optional, and I'm going to focus on this far left. So when people are looking at the screen, focusing on the far left bar, the dark blue bar. because what you'll notice is that the bank safe option has 100% of the funds. Well, this is exactly how it looks when people go into the enrollment process. It's exactly how it looks. If somebody wants to change their allocation of their funds, they are more than welcome to. These other 4 options are all investment funds, and they range from aggressive, the most aggressive is the growth fund, to the most conservative is the income fund. And it's a different percentage of stocks and bonds making up these mutual funds for people. And with that, if somebody wants to continue the enrollment process and not change the bank safe, that's great. They're more than welcome to do that. People can go back and change these options as well, because the bank safe is an FDIC insured account. So while it won't garner much, if any, interest at all, we know that the money is safe and it's protected because it's FDIC insured. But if somebody would like to take some of their funds and place them into the investment portions, they're more than welcome to do so as well. Spending the funds, we hear a lot from parents and guardians about asking us, do we have a set in stone list of things that the money can and cannot be spent on? And well, I always like to tell them no, and I'm very happy about that, because we have 2 rules that people need to follow when they're spending money out of their stable account. The first rule is that the expense must relate to the individual. So it needs to be spent for the beneficiary. That's what's most important. The second rule is that that expense also needs to be something that will help to maintain or improve that beneficiary's health, independence, or quality of life. Maintaining or improving that beneficiary's health, independence, or quality of life. I wanted to repeat it because it's really broad, and that's great. The reason why that is good is because stable accounts are not a cookie cutter type of account. This allows for people to be able to spend on their needs and making sure that they can still get what they need. And not everybody that has a stable account has the same needs. And even one beneficiary may have different needs 6 months from now than they do currently. And that's okay. That's where stable accounts can work to make sure that we are allowing people more financial independence. You'll see examples up here of housing and rent and basic living expenses like going to the grocery store or buying clothes, transportation, education. This is where we see a lot of instances of people rolling over the money in a 529 college savings plan into a stable account. The simple reason being that you can see now that we can spend the funds on much more than just education, but we also have an easier methods of spending as well, which I will get into in just a moment. Assistive technology, any bills that somebody might have, but I always want to let people know that it's not just these broad categories. So while you see transportation there, it's not just the fact that somebody may have a car payment. It's the fact that, well, the car needs gas, or the person needs insurance to be driving the car in the first place. As well as maybe somebody would like to put a handicap accessible ramp onto a van that they currently own. That's great. Or maybe a person doesn't have the opportunity to drive, that they need to use community-based transportation services, whether that's the bus, public transportation, Lyft, anything like that that gets them around their community. Putting money into the account, there are 3 different methods of putting money into the account, and I'm really going to focus on 2 of them. Transferring money into a personal checking or savings account, that is a great way to get money into the account. That is also a way that you can take money out. And I always want to remind people that when you take money out of the stable account and you place it into a checking or savings account, you're of course able to do that, but that money once again becomes a countable resource because you have taken it out of the stable account. So even though it came from the stable account, because it is no longer shielded by the stable account, it is once again a countable resource. So just keep that in mind when you do transfer money back into a checking or savings account. The second option is a third-party check. A third-party check is an interesting option to where people will go onto their account, log into their account online, and fill out a virtual check. Well, that information comes to us, and once it comes to us, we write the check and mail it. This is great so that people that need to spend checks, maybe it's for a certain utility company that still only takes checks, or a landlord, that this allows for people to be able to pay checks but not have to worry about a lot of that middleman of getting stamps, going to the post office, anything like that. All of that, the onus is on us, and that is free to the account holder as well. The final reason that people can spend, or excuse me, the final way that people can spend out of the account is the stable card. And the stable card is a loadable Visa card. Here's a picture of it here. But I want to stress the loadable feature. Because it is a Visa card, of course it can be spent anywhere that Visa is spent, but I have to stress loadable, because when you receive a stable card in the mail and you activate the card and thus connects it to your stable account, that it still has $0.00 on it. That is not typical with a normal debit card. A normal debit card either has the functionality of all the funds that are in the account or whatever that daily spending limit might be. That we have the option to load money onto the account, and this is a security protection. So people will take money from their stable account and load it onto the stable card, however much money they choose. However much they have loaded onto the card is now the limit that they can spend. Some things to keep in mind, some other protections that we have placed in mind. There's no overdraft, there's no low balance fee, there's no $0 balance fee. All these typical nickel and dime that you see, these types of fees that you might see nowadays, or any new ones that they might be coming up with, we do not have those. There is also no cash access out of the account. And we allow no cash access out of the account, so this means that people cannot go to an ATM and pull out however much money they want. Or if somebody's at the grocery store or any point of sale transaction, that getting cash back is not an option when using your stable card. And the simple reason for that is the next section that you'll see is that we want to track every expense, every deposit, every withdrawal, every dollar in, every dollar out. We want to make sure that we are keeping account of. And just like when somebody logs on to any online banking account, they see the date the money was spent or deposited, where it came from, and where it was spent on. We do the exact same thing. So people can see that, but we also want to even continue that aspect of transparency and accountability, because if somebody wants to, now I'm in Ohio, so for those of you that know, there's a grocery store called Kroger, so I don't want to just be tossing out random places, and you all might not have any idea what I mean, but for this example, it's a grocery store. So let's say somebody spent $50 at Kroger, and at that case in point, all the line item would say is that, okay, it's June 23rd, and we spent $50 at Kroger. Well, if somebody wants to go into greater detail than that, they can. And there are two ways that they can do that. The first is we have a notating feature. So if somebody wants to notate along with that line item, they can say, well, I got groceries and clothes. Or if they would like to take that a step further, people actually have the opportunity to take a picture of their receipt. And once they've taken a picture of their receipt, they can attach it to that line item. There are also alerts for beneficiaries and ALRs alike that will monitor low balances. So if somebody would like to say, hey, stable account, notify me when I only have $10 left on my stable card, we will do that via text message. Or seeing every time the account is spent, we also offer that as well. This slide that you see here is only for supplemental security income, or SSI for short. It does not pertain to SSDI, does not pertain to Medicaid or any housing and urban development benefits, any food stamp benefits. This is only for SSI recipients to take mind of. The first is a balance of over $100,000. At the federal level, Social Security said that they would count that as a resource. So what somebody would do if they get close to $100,000 is not only will we continue to notify them, but there will be options of other community resources that people can use, possibly a special needs trust, to keep that money protected and also keep utilizing and saving in a stable account. The second rule is, I'm going to boil it down to one sentence here for you. When you take money out of the stable account and you put it into a personal checking or savings account, it is once again accountable resource. And so number two, just trying to give an example of that. Number three is that one thing to note about SSI is that the beneficiary's own wages still count as income. All of the money that goes into a stable account is a post-tax dollar. So no matter what that benefits agency, in this case, Social Security, has seen wages already. And that is one big thing for SSI is that they tell you that you can only make so much money to continue to receive the certain amount that you might be receiving. That rule still applies here. We cannot change Social Security rules, but we give people the chance to save that money and invest it once they have earned it. What happens to the account when the beneficiary passes away? Well, when the beneficiary passes away, whomever is in charge of their estate will notify us, and we will allow them temporary access to take over the account. And the reason why they would want to take over temporary access to the account is so that they can spend on end-of-life needs, whether it is funeral costs, burial costs, any bills that somebody might have. All these things are good examples. There is no designated transfer upon death, which means that with a stable account, you cannot name a beneficiary with a stable account. This is unique because now we encourage people to look into the option of having a will, because having a will is a great place to say, well, when I pass away, I want all of the funds in my stable account to go here, or I want it to go to these different places. Because you can't do it directly in a stable account, you can do so in a will. And so that's why we do encourage people to look into creating a will, because the amount that people, the amount of assets that people can accrue now over time is so much larger by using a stable account than it was before, when people were beholden to a typical resource limit. The final thing to note here is that if the beneficiary does not have a will, then the account will be considered a part of their estate, and the estate itself will be handled by the probate court. So whatever county you may be living in, that the county probate court would decide how the estate itself is handled upon somebody's death if they do not have a will. And so that is the case in point, whether somebody has a stable account or not. But if they do not have a will, then the account will go through the normal probate process. I get a lot of questions about Medicaid services, especially Medicaid payback. So for those of you that are not aware, Medicaid payback is when a beneficiary passes away and they receive Medicaid at any point in time in their life, including waivers, and Medicaid will send a letter to the estate administrator saying, we gave this person X amount of dollars over their lifetime, and we would like it back now. Well, for a lot of people, that can add up to be a lot of money. And so what we want to do is we wanted to protect this money as much as possible. And I'll give you two examples here. A checking or savings account has no protections whatsoever. So Medicaid can immediately come in and take some or all of what they are owed at that point. On the other side of the coin, you have a third-party discretionary trust, where a third-party discretionary trust is completely bulletproof from Medicaid payback. They cannot ask for $1 of it. Whereas stable accounts, we fall right into the middle, because while we are not bulletproof, we have a lot of protections that take place. The first thing that we want to do is make sure that somebody was actually receiving Medicaid while they had a stable account open. That's rule number one. The two things have to be happening at the same time. If somebody was receiving Medicaid and stopped receiving Medicaid before they started using their stable account, well, at that point in time, then Medicaid cannot ask for any funds. We need to see overlap to where somebody had a stable account and they were also receiving Medicaid at the same time. So a good example of this is, let's say a person has been receiving Medicaid for the past 10 years, but today they open up their stable account. Well, when they pass away, Medicaid cannot ask for any of that previous 10 years out of the stable account. They might try to ask for other avenues of getting those funds, but they cannot ask it out of the stable account. They can only ask from what they gave to the person while they had their stable account open. So that's the first big limitation. And once we've narrowed that down, that overlapped amount, then we want to make sure that we are subtracting any bills. So whether it's funeral, burial expenses, utility bills that somebody might have, legal bills, medical bills, you name it, all these types of things can be paid out of the stable account before Medicaid can ask. And so again, it's just chipping away from that overlap amount. On top of that as well, if somebody is in the Medicaid buy-in program, that's where people pay monthly premiums, that if somebody's in the Medicaid buy-in program, we also add up all of those premiums and subtract it from that overlap total so that people are not paying Medicaid twice. Now, after all of these things have taken place, then if there are any funds left in the stable account after this is done, then Medicaid can still ask for funds. Sometimes they do, sometimes they do not. It depends upon usually the amount of money that may be left in the account after this is completed. There is a cost to having a stable account. It's a monthly cost here for Ohio residents at $2.50 per month or $30 a year. For all the other 49 states, it's $3.50 or $42 a year. This fund or this cost automatically comes out, and people can see it on their line item statements, or we also send people quarterly statements either through the mail or electronically, however they choose, and people will be able to see these fees on that platform as well. On the right is an asset-based fee. This is only once per year, and it takes place within the first week of January. And this is based on a mix of how much somebody may have in their stable account, but also whether somebody is investing the funds or not. And you'll see that between 0.19% and 0.33% is the amount for Ohio residents. That sliding scale moves based on the different allocations of the investments that people are using. And then for others, all the other 50 states, or excuse me, wow, 49 states, that it's between 0.45% and 0.59%. And again, all of these can be seen on the line items in the account as well as quarterly statements. And my final thing to note about this is what's really important here is that we work really hard to continue to make sure that we can keep these costs getting smaller and getting smaller. So the more people that we enroll, the lower the cost can get for everybody. So we try to continue to shrink both of these types of fees. I wanted to take a second to mention that a special needs trust and a stable account work very well together. And that's also, a checking account, a 529 account. We on our team, we will never advocate that somebody close down an existing financial account in favor of a stable account. The simple reason being is because they all work very well together. So you do not have to close one down to be able to use both of them. They work in conjunction extremely well together. Because while, for example, with stable accounts, you get the state tax deduction, you get ease of spending, you get broader spending power. With a special needs trust, you can put more money into the account. You can also put in physical items, whereas stable accounts, you can only put in liquid cash. My final point, and then I mentioned this at the very beginning, that when you have questions, we are here to answer them. We have a 1-800 number that's open for 11 hours every weekday. And I want to stress here, though, that I know that it is a 1-800 number, but when you call the number, you'll actually get a person on the other end. It is not press 1 for this, press 2 for that. You will get another person on our team that is on the other end of the line, which we love to be able to say that we have. We have an email account, so if somebody would prefer to send things over typing or texting, that they can do that as well through the email. And again, our website, I'm going to go back here to the main page. Our website is, again, where everything is done. So I wanted to take a moment before we end, and I wanted to thank those of you within the Family Resource Network for your time today, for listening to me, for learning a lot about stable accounts. Please feel free, whether you're with the Family Resource Network or not, please feel free to reach out to my team with any questions that you may have about stable accounts. We are more than happy to help out. If you would like somebody on our team to come to a meeting, whether it's virtual or hopefully in the future when we are able to have in-person presentations, we are able to accommodate those needs as well. So thank you very much, everybody. I greatly appreciate your time. I hope you stay safe and have a wonderful rest of your day. Thank you.